confronted with a know-it-all, do you try to outsmart them? Or do you become a know-it-all yourself, trying to get the upper hand, wanting to prove that you're right and they're wrong? Hello, my name is Lee, and I'm the founder of High Performance Coaching and Training, and today's topic is talking about the difficult personality type, the know-it-all. So I remember reading a story, and because I'm a martial artist as well, it really resonated with me. And the story went like this. There was a factory carpenter, and he was very, very good at his trade. However, he was always being micromanaged. So his foreman that worked with him was a know-it-all. It doesn't matter what this person put forward, this martial artist put forward, it was never the right answer. There was always a better answer. So the foreman was never really open to any of the ideas that the carpenter was putting forward, and the carpenter was very good at his trade, but the foreman was never ever open to any ideas. And if the martial arts put anything forward, obviously the foreman would discard it very quickly with better ways that he could do it, because the foreman just wanted to show his brilliance. He always wanted to have control over the situation, and of course the martial artist, he was getting very, very frustrated with this, and he was becoming very, very stressed, and he was starting to show signs of his stress by developing an ulcer within his stomach. So the martial artist goes to a doctor, and the doctors were observing how he could move around without showing any pain with the ulcer. And of course they had a conversation of, how could you do that? And then the martial arts would say, through his discipline and through his training, he was taught a way that he could control his body at all times and put his body in the position where there was less pain. So he knew his body well, and the posture and the stances that he could go to through his continual training of martial arts. And the doctor said that was really interesting. So then he said, well, tell me a little bit about the difference between your martial art training and how you develop all this control, opposed to someone who's got an ulcer from stress from their daily working in the factory. And the martial arts would say his instructor was extremely critical. His instructor was a master, and he had a conversation with the martial artist of, did he want to actually become a master of his art or just train? And of course, he said he wanted to become the master, but he had huge respect for his instructor. So his instructor was extremely harsh on him. He was always watching, with his eye. And if he did any technique wrong, or he could see any slight movement incorrect, he would rush over there and he would correct this martial artist. And of course, the martial artist, when you're in martial arts, it's a bit like the army. You're taught just to say thank you. So obviously, you would respond with us, which means thank you. Because in the martial arts arena, what the instructor says, you don't try to criticize, or you don't try to make any excuses or justifications. You just do what you're told to do. And of course, he didn't mind that, because he loved that, because with the extra attention he was having, he was becoming a master of his art. So then the doctor said, why don't you use that approach in the same approach as at work with the foreman? Why don't you perceive him and have an attitude change towards him, and perceive that when he did correct you, pretend that he was your instructor at martial arts and respond in the same sort of way as what you did with him. Of course, he went home and he thought this was a great idea. So what he did was then he made a decision to change his attitude. He made a decision that he would no longer compete with the know-it-all, but what he would do is he would change his attitude. So therefore then he would turn all the corrections and the criticisms into a learning opportunity. So what he did was, when the foreman started correcting him, he would just turn around and he would say, can you please show me? And of course, the foreman at first was taken back by this change of behavior. All the resistance had gone. he was taken back. But of course, the know-it-all likes to show their brilliance. They like to know that other people respect their brilliance, that they respect their knowledge. So of course, the know-it-all loves that opportunity to go into that mentoring type state as well. So the relationship, it actually got better. The tension was removed, change of attitude by the martial artists, and also the full moon started to ease up more because they become much more friendly environment, working together with cooperation and respect to each other. Now, the situation didn't change, however, and they would never sit down and become the best of friends, but it became a workable cooperating workplace. So you can see how the martial artist had to adjust and change his attitude with the know-it-all personality. The know-it-all personality, they actually do know a lot, they research a lot, and they're a bit of the perfectionist type personality type as well. And of course, they can get under your skin because the big problem with the know-it-alls is they're not open to new ideas and change. Some of the signs of a know-it-all, very rigid-minded. So very hard to get them to change their point of view. Once they've set on an idea, that's it. And it's hard to actually change them around that idea as well. They don't like to yield. They don't like to yield, and they actually hate correction. They hate correction and they hate mistakes. Remembering they're the perfectionist. They're the people who have the intention of if you're going to do it, then you have to do it right. That type of intention and personality. They, if you make them wrong, they feel humiliated, and then they want to get back. They want to retaliate back, and the battle then begins. Yielding is not an option. So do not allow yourself to get into any type of resentment or any type of battle with the know-it-all. So how do you deal with that? Firstly, it's a word called patience. Often if I have difficult clients that I work with, I say to myself, this is patience training. This is like, this is you stepping back and not allowing your ego to go into battle to prove a point of right and wrong. Remember that your leadership and personal growth comes from adversity. So this is called experience. So as leaders and people who work within industries, we will always come across conflict, and we'll always come across difficult personality types along the way as well. So therefore, it's looking at your goal. Your goal with the know-it-all. Remember your goal, we have a goal. So the goal with the work of know-it-all is trying to get the know-it-all to open up to new ideas and concepts. Let's go through our 5-step action plan. Firstly, when you're dealing with a know-it-all, you have to prepare. You have to know your facts. Make sure you research the topic or the incident before speaking to the know-it-all. The know-it-all looks for errors and mistakes in your presentation. So when you've done your research and you're speaking with the know-it-all, they're actually scanning for the mistakes and errors in your presentation. If they find any shortcomings with your presentation, they are not backward or letting you know and discrediting you in front of other people. Make sure you communicate concisely, briefly, and clearly. Step 2, backtrack, which is paraphrasing. Be warned, out of all the difficult personality types, the know-it-all is the person you have to backtrack the most with. This is very frustrating, and it takes a long length of time. When you're backtracking and you miss one point that the know-it-all has raised, or any of their concerns, if you miss any of those points, they will let you know. They will let you know the point that you've missed. So it's very important that you listen actively to the know-it-all, and you actually backtrack all the points, all their desires, all their doubts, everything in the conversation, to show them that you've been listening, and important that when you do backtrack, that you do it with respect. If you show any signs of harshness or sarcasm or anything like that, they will pick it up straight away. Once you've backtracked with them, so you've done your paraphrasing, then you need to blend with their doubts and desires. So acknowledge the reasons, the doubts that they've put forward. So if they're saying, you know, they've tried this before and it didn't work, you still have to acknowledge that in the conversation when you do your backtracking. So all their doubts, all their concerns, and in that conversation, you know, you would have gotten that information from them by asking questions, or maybe it's a continual conversation that you've had before with them. Once you start to actually start to blend with them, so you're blending, so you're letting them know that they understand, then you also want to blend with the doubts, but then you want to also blend with the desires. So what are the desires? What are the goals? What's the vision? What's the purpose? I need to blend with that as well. So once you start blending with their doubts and desires and raising those, then you may frame it in a way that you present your ideas very indirectly. So when you blend with them, they lower their shield for a short time because they're surprised at you being able to, you know, blend and show that you've been listening and demonstrate you've been listening, so it can actually surprise them. So now we need to, when we communicate our ideas indirectly, we need to use softening words. And some of those softening words are things like maybe, perhaps. This is a way that we can have a bit of a detour. Explore this concept let's explore this concept together. I was just wondering, let's look at another way of that we can look at this. So when you start softening, there are the words like maybe, you know, it's possibility, perhaps. It's those words that are very non-committal, very, very soft sort of words as well. Then you'll use sentences like this. You bring it together. When you start blending in the soft ways, then we want to get them to think that we're involving them with new ideas. So you want to use things like us or we, or sentences like, for example, what would happen if we, idea, or what might happen, what might be the results if we, idea. So we're involving them in the options. This includes the know-it-all, which they love because they like to put their ideas forward as well. And make sure you stay away from I statements or anything that excludes them from being involved with the idea coming up. Then it's important to use questions instead of statements. People who act like the know-it-all, they feel that they must know the answers to your questions. Therefore, they will consider your question before answering it. So how do we do? Let's bring a sentence together as an example. So we might start the sentence off with, bear with me, I was wondering, what do you suppose would happen if we were to try, idea, out in these new specific ways? What do you think? So therefore, you're asking their opinion, you're asking for their advice, which the know-it-all loves to do, and they feel like they have to answer the question. Now that you've included the doubts and the desires, the know-it-all starts to then see you as a friendly person and not the enemy. They start to see a friendly person, and then you start dovetailing the ideas and the desires together. Then step 5, establish a mentoring relationship with them. Acknowledge them and build a relationship that will guide you in the area that you are wanting to develop. So use their skills as a mentor or also for other team members as well. Remember, they like to be recognized for their brilliance. So in summary, the 5 steps are: be prepared. Step 1 is be prepared. Know your stuff first. Do your research. Step 2, backtrack repeatedly. Remembering more backtrack is required with a know-it-all than any other difficult personality type. 3, blend with their doubts and their desires. And 4, present your ideas indirectly. And 5, establish a mentoring relationship. If you've got any questions, reach out for me. Hope you enjoyed today's topic, and our next topic we're going to move into grenade. Talk soon.